Hello and warm welcome to this special program edition on His Majesty the 4th Rugalpo Jigme Wangchuk. I'm Tshering Wangmo with the edition. In this segment, I'll be talking about the legacy of happiness. The program is brought to you on the BBS Radio as a tribute to the vision of the 4th Rugalpo Jigme Wangchuk, starting from early revolutionary concept of gross national happiness to the introduction of democracy in the country in 2008. So be with me for the in-depth. The late Rugalpo Jigme Wangchuk has said that the goal of development is to make the people prosperous and happy. The importance of prosperity and happiness was highlighted in his address on the occasion of Bhutan's admission to the United Nations in 1971. This vision was elaborated by the 4th Rugalpo Jigme Wangchuk. 4th Rugalpo declared in his first years of reign that our country's policy is to consolidate our sovereignty to achieve economic self-reliance, prosperity and happiness for our country and the people. 4th Rugalpo's subsequent pronouncement that gross national happiness is more important than gross national product has captured the imagination of scholars and policymakers across the world. On this note, let me first bring in the former Indian ambassador to Bhutan, Dilip Mehta. He is one of the recipients of the highest Bhutanese award, Truk Thukse, by His Majesty Jigme Wangchuk in 2012. The former Indian ambassador, Dilip Mehta, has a story to narrate where His Majesty the 4th Rugalpo mentioned GNH in Bombay in 1979, which very few of us know.
His Majesty and the Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi were on their way to Havana in 1979 to attend the Non-Aligned Conference. And Rajiv Gandhi sent me to Hashimara Air Force Base to accompany His Majesty by air to Bombay, from where the two dignitaries would then travel together by a special flight to Havana. The morning of their departure, standing at the airport, a journalist, and I was standing right next to His Majesty and Rajiv Gandhi, a journalist asked His Majesty, what is the GDP of Bhutan? To which His Majesty spontaneously and immediately replied that, for me, the gross national happiness of my people is paramount. Their welfare, their well-being. And this, I think, is the first time he enunciated this concept, which he may have thought of earlier in public. And thereafter, of course, it hit the media and everyone wondered, what is this wonderful idea that has emerged from His Majesty? Because it was a concept that had never been heard before. So that, I think, is the background of when he first mentioned it in the presence of the Indian Prime Minister on their way to Havana Non-Aligned Summit.
I also talked to the first international journalist, John Elliott, who covered GNH globally. John Elliott, in 1987, got an opportunity to interview His Majesty the 4th King, where His Majesty was concerned about Bhutan's development and happiness.
It was 1987. I was the Financial Times correspondent in New Delhi, and I was honoured with one of the first interviews that His Majesty had given for many years. And during that, he talked about his concerns about how to develop Bhutan. He worried about how to develop the country, how to open it up, but not so fast as to be disruptive, while maintaining Bhutan's traditions and peaceful Buddhist culture. In a paternalistic way, he was clearly agonizingly aware of the enormity of his inheritance, and that his decisions could make or break his tiny nation. It needed protecting from what could become uncontrollable and avaricious outside influences. Independence through an independent culture was the main phrase that he used. And as I listened to this young king, then aged 32, I'd been a business correspondent for the Financial Times in England before, and it struck me that in a totally different background, of course, he sounded rather like a young businessman who inherits a huge family empire. He knows that he has to make the products and run the factories and do the marketing and make the profits. But and I've met a couple of businessmen in India who've said similar things to me, but they're worried, they're concerned not just about that, but how to look after the thousands and maybe tens of thousands of people who work for their company and have worked maybe for generations, and they feel it's their legacy, it's their job to make the profits and sell the goods and run the factories, but it's their legacy to look after the people. Listening to the King, but what I sensed that he had that same concern, and I wrote a quote from him in an article which appeared in the Financial Times in 1987, "The Modern Path to Enlightenment" was the headline. And he said, "We are convinced that we must aim for contentment and happiness. Whether we take 5 years or 10 to raise the per capita income and increase prosperity is not going to guarantee that happiness, which includes political stability, social harmony, and the Bhutanese culture and way of life." And then he went on to talk about independence through an independent culture. He said, "We are fortunate in developing late at a time when other countries which went through our present stage of development 30 or 40 years ago are becoming aware of what they have done wrong. They have developed a modern society, but none has kept its strong traditions and culture, which we want to do." And he was clearly still thinking it through. This is what I intend to do. It was, how can we tackle these problems? How can we look after our people and make sure that Bhutan prospers and maintains contentment and happiness?
Now I have the Director of Center for Bhutan Studies, Tshering Wangmo, with the report on what has happened or how the concept of GNH developed as the center took up the task of studying the GNH in 2005.
I would like to report that in 2009, globally there was 2,368 appearances of GNH in news items. This is how far it went. Part of the parlance, when I first entered the civil service in last years of 1980s, it was very rife. It was very popular, and you can see the evidences of it permeating the official documents. So I can't tell you exactly when. It must have started with the previous few generations of civil servants who were in intimate contact with His Majesty the King. More seriously, after he abdicated, the government then took a decision that it must now be made into a very systematic scientific study.
The findings of the 2010 GNH survey showed that men are happier than women and unmarried are among the happiest. So let's dig out more how the GNH concept has been developed and how it has been measured from Tshering Wangmo.
The thing is that, I tabulated the number of indicators that is currently being used by the government of Bhutan, not the GNH one, and there exists 52 of them. But they do not pick up the theme of GNH. They pick up the themes which are also addressed in any country, which do not explicitly follow GNH, although it is always an underlying theme. So it is really to make GNH more adequate that based on surveys we formulated those 33 indicators. Now, balance in terms of GNH really means trying to produce a strategy, policy, and accompanying indicators in terms of material and the immaterial, the objective and the subjective, or to hark back to the Buddhist theme, all of us are unhappy from external causes. Some of them are internal causes which are only accessible to your own mind, by your own mind. And further, there are also self-secrets which you even don't know that makes you unhappy. In modern parlance, you need to know what are the causes of happiness. What are the consequences if you follow at an individual level habits which are pro-happiness, and at an official or governmental level policies which tilt the whole society towards happiness. These are two different things. But as an application of government policies, it hasn't been done, I must say, very clearly anywhere else. It is being tried here for the first time. And lastly, you need to know what are the appropriate skills that would orient yourself towards happiness, or unknowingly or unwittingly unhappiness. So this is really the aim. The aim since 2005 over here is to, through media, educate the people on these themes. Through a scientifically based indicators, persuade the scientific community through policy-oriented indicators to change and amend the behavior of the government. Now, I must end on this note. This is the year when the United Nations is deciding on the next 15 years of global goals under the Sustainable Development. And the GNH indicator is still there on the list after several rounds of meeting. I hope and appeal to His Excellency the Prime Minister to advocate it so that we stand slightly better chance. I think there is a chance.
The next person I have is the first woman minister of Bhutan, Limpodoji Churen. She shares her personal and practical experiences where she says education is the biggest legacy of happiness that the fourth king has left behind.
Very special year this year because we are celebrating and we are paying tribute to our fourth king who has, during his reign, brought this country to this level. A secure, traditional, modern state, stable, and at the same time very progressive. And soon we are going to graduate from a least developed country to a medium income country. I only want to share my very personal and practical experience, legacy of happiness. I want to see in myself that legacy of happiness from nowhere to somewhere and from nobody to somebody. And I think that's the dream of everybody. And I say this because I did my schooling in 1970s. And I come from a very remote part of the country in the east, big family, and you have to walk 2 days to reach your home. And I completed my school and I pursued my engineering degree. And engineering then was not even a girl's choice of profession. And the point I'm driving at is in 1970s that gender equality was consciously there in our policy. And I want to believe that where I am is because of education. And I want to say that education has come a long way. And it's the biggest, I feel, that legacy of happiness that fourth king has left behind. We have come from a time when putting children to school was resisted by parents. And they would even bribe those who are looking out for children to put them to school. To a time now where, even a farmer, a poor farmer is ready to sell their properties now, put the children into school. So we have come a long way, and I truly feel that education is one biggest legacy of happiness.
GNH has got no hopes unless it is applied by the leaders and civil servants, taking into account in policies and decisions. So let's listen to Limpodoji Churen how she applies GNH principles in her daily work as a minister.
Talking on how we are trying to implement. Again, sometimes I find gross national happiness is such a profound and such a wonderful concept that can we make it mechanical? Can we say we can count this much and can we do that? Sometimes I reflect on myself and I say, can we do that? It's something very integral part of your life. It's ultimately trying to be a good human being. And I think His Majesty the King has always said, it's a development with values and development that has to make difference to the lives of individuals. So in my capacity as a Minister for Works and Human Settlement, where I deal with really the hardcore issues and sometimes the soft issues of human things do tend to get left out. But we are reminded again and again that we have to be sustainable, we have to be inclusive, it has to have human value in whatever we do. So in our town planning, for example, we make sure that our environment are not spoiled. We have a very sustainable environment. We take care of water bodies if it's there. Then green construction, we try to make sure that we use local materials, natural materials. So we have in fact working towards developing standards and applying so many other standards to make sure that we have sustainable energy, conservation of energy, then disaster risk resilient. So these are some of the things that we take care when we are doing this urban planning. And similarly with the road construction as well, there is a stringent regulation that you try to save the environment as much as possible, safety issues. So even in hardcore structures, we do take care of all these elements of sustainability. I think GNH is also to do with sustainability. How do we sustain? So these are the elements that we take care in my capacity as infrastructure development area.
Well, we have been talking about legacy of happiness. That's all I have for you today. I'm Tshering Wangmo, and thank you for tuning in.